Hi, this is Gurasi Singh, and you're listening to my Thick Accent podcast. So, for the ones who are new to the podcast today, first of all, welcome. And second, congratulations. This is one of your best decisions of the year 2023. So, I moved to Canada in 2018 for the fall semester. I did a program for 14 months. And as per the rules, if you study for less than 16 months, you get the postgraduate work permit for the same amount of months you studied for. So I got the work permit for 14 months. I know it's sometimes not enough to get a permanent residency, but I was about to join a new job in a month, was moving cities, all in all, things were planned. But I got my work permit in February 2020. And a month later, well, God had other plans. And my guest today has been in a similar situation. But in his case, he did not receive his work permit in 2020. In fact, he moved to Canada in February 2020 along with his partner with the permanent residency. And the day he landed, there was a snowstorm. But who knew it was nothing compared to the storm he had to face 15 days after landing? Before moving, he has worked in India with Marks and Spencer, Tech Mahindra, Vishal Megamod as a human resources business partner, and currently in Canada, he works as people and cultural business partner with Lush, and is also an ambassador for immigrant networks that addresses the biggest pain points of newcomers and help them get on the path to succeed. Let's learn more from him how he navigated through the storm that shook the whole world. And if you happen to send him a LinkedIn request and you also play table tennis or ping pong, do not ask him for a coffee chat. Instead, ask him for a game. Please welcome Soumya Sharma.
Hey, good evening, everyone. And thank you, Gurashish, for your very kind and generous introduction about me. And welcome all listeners. Let's hope that this is a very productive session for everyone. And looking forward to connect with you all through my LinkedIn page. After you listen and you believe that if I have been able to add some value, please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn and let's chat.
And like I said, do not forget him to ask him for a game if you play table tennis or ping pong,
Yes.
right? Okay, awesome. So, Samya, welcome once again. I'm very excited for this episode, particularly this discussion of ours. So, let me start by asking you that. So, from past 2 years, I come up with a word that kind of defines the new year as a reminder that I keep, just to keep myself as a reminder, because we do have this tendency to move on to the next thing. So, this year I've chosen the word celebrate. Just to live in that moment for some time and celebrate that thing, and then I can move on to the next thing. So I want to ask you, is there any word or a phrase that you want to keep as a reminder for the upcoming months?
Well, acceptance. So
Hmm.
acceptance towards a lot of things. Acceptance towards immigrants, acceptance towards some different style of speaking, acceptance
Mm-hmm.
towards a different way of thinking, and acceptance towards people who do not look like you, who do not behave like you. So
Yeah.
that's everything starts with acceptance, and then the learning curve starts. So for me,
Hmm.
it's going to be acceptance.
Awesome. Love that. So appearances and accents. That's what I heard. That's what the podcast is about. So yeah, let's just get into it. Okay. So before we get into unfolding your Canadian journey, let me take you back to the time you spent in India, specifically New Delhi. So tell us about the formative years of your life and what the focus was on growing up.
So the focus always was on how do I develop myself as a professional who adds to the organizational value. So as with everyone, I followed my parents' dream of becoming an engineer after completing my 12th, right?
Okay.
Yeah, so I got admission in Faculty of Engineering and Technology at Jamia Millia Islamia, and that was also my first foray into the diverse culture that India has. It was the first time when I got exposed to a lot of folks which came from a different culture, which came from a different thought process, and how everything just amalgamates into this beautiful stream of thoughts and ideas, and we were able to on how I was able to navigate through those years. So yeah, I completed my engineering, and I was also a member of IEEE.
Mhm.
And then I did a job, engineering job, for about I think a year and a year and a half, and it just struck me at that point of time also that the most intelligent people might not be the ones who get paid the highest, or
Mm.
or they might not be the ones who would be leading the organizations. Uh, it, During that time, I observed and I realized that it's the combination of having excellent EQ and IQ skills that propels the workforce ahead, and by extension, the organization forward. That's how I decided to invest my time in developing my skills in management, specifically, and that too in human resource management. So then I completed my MBA from Lal Bahadur Shastri Institute of Management, situated in Delhi. And then I started my first gig at Marks and Spencer. Even before completing my MBA, I was able to get into Marks and Spencer, and my boss, my first boss, an awesome person, helped me to shape me on, I mean, a professional which I am today. They negotiated with the college authorities to, I mean, to give me some kind of a blanket approval. Okay, till exams he can come in and join us. so
Hmm. Okay.
and he also selected me for a reason, that I he wanted a person who had that HR mindset, but can also combine it with a lot of data analytics. And because I came in from a engineering background, so I introduced a lot of data analytics models, and obviously whatever I had learned from that analytical bent of mind. To influence some of the strategies and programs at Marks and Spencer. Then after that, I was headhunted by Tech Mahindra. So over at Tech Mahindra, I solved the problem of their performance management system, introducing the balance scorecard into the business, and then from there, I got a role as an HR business partner at TVG Retail, which is a San Francisco-based private equity firm, and
Mhm.
the name on the streets, or the brand name, was Vishal Megamart. So there I've worked as an HR business partner for about a year and a half, or almost 2 years. I think it was two. And then I was promoted as a senior HR business partner. And then I was taking care of the business partnering activities for all 15,000 employees, including the corporate and store people. And yeah, and then just after that, I think just around that time, I and my wife, we received a PR. And then we decided, okay, let's take the plunge, let's see what's out there. let's let's explore Canada. And there we were in February of 2020, just landing in Toronto. At the time, snowstorm was there, as you described.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like a perfect picture, like what some painter would have painted it for me. Like the airplane just came out of the clouds, and all I could see, okay, where's the ground? All I could see is clouds. So it was snow at the end of the day. Yeah, so it was my first time seeing that much of snow. The whole city was covered in snow. The roads were covered in snow. Everything was covered in
Mhm.
snow. But yeah, I mean, that was a good time.
And Canada was the only country you decided to move to. That's it.
Yes.
Okay, so you said you landed in February 2020. So before we get into the lockdowns and everything, tell me, how was like your first day along with the snowstorm? What was going on in your mind?
Well, challenge number one: weather the snowstorm. Right, I'd
Yeah.
never seen one.
Mhm.
Um, and then the first task was, okay, how am I going to go to my Airbnb? Right, there was no
Okay.
buses, there was nothing. So yeah, but then again, where there is a will, there is a way. I was able to
Yeah.
find a driver who spoke our same language. Actually, the person was from Pakistan,
Mhm.
and while he was driving, he told us a lot about Toronto. Okay, you can go here, you can go there, and a lot of stuff. Obviously, that warm greetings and everything was there, just because that common language was always there. So yeah, then I think the jet lag hit at around 6 o'clock in the evening.
Yeah.
Obviously we did not have any phone lines or anything like that, but you're like, okay, let's take rest for this first day, and let's go out for our banking operations, for phone numbers, for this, that, yada yada yada. But before that, I think we were able to go out to Freshco, I believe.
Mhm.
Yeah, and as soon as we entered, my first reaction was like, why is everything so big over here? Why is an onion of the size of my full head? I just cannot imagine it, right? And I could not identify a cauliflower. I was like, oh my god, why is it so big? Right? So maybe, and then my wife joked, okay, this country is big, everything is got to be big. Okay, maybe we also came in with big dreams.
Yeah.
So let's see how it goes. So yeah, but then that was funny. Yeah, that's how Toronto treated us for the first day. Very warm, very accepting again, and very very healthy, except for the temperature and this the snowstorm part, of course.
Well, you talked about, vegetables a little bit. Was there anything that you tried for the first time in Canada that you have never tried before in India?
Hmm. You know those yellow and red color bell
Yeah,
peppers?
yeah,
I had
yeah.
never tried them back in India,
Okay.
but over here, that along with hummus, oh my god,
Yes,
bliss.
exactly. So for me, it's hummus and this avocado. I think avocado is like my go to breakfast, dinner, lunch, everything all the time now. I just have it all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, crush the avocado, make it
Yeah,
like a butter, spread it over your bread, sprinkle a little bit of salt and green chilies, and then you're set. You're all set for the breakfast.
100%. Okay, now you're making me hungry, Soumya. So 15 days later, 11th March, pandemic was declared. 13th March, you received your first interview call. And then 20th March, the hiring got cancelled. And then a week later, you were working at Dollarama as a cashier. Tell us about your initial thoughts and that whole transition.
Well, the initial thought was we can't control it,
Hmm.
so let's try to do something which we can control, and that is under our control. So what me and my spouse did was we took printouts of our resumes, and we walked through a 5 kilometer radius from where we were living at that point of time,
Hmm.
and we submitted our resumes in each and every grocery shop out there by hand, and I mean stating the shifts we're available for
Hmm.
and yada yada yada. So yeah, and just when we were returning, I think the Dollarama which we submitted our resumes was about 4 kilometers away. Obviously we were going on by foot.
Yeah.
So we were able to catch hold of the store manager. The store manager was like, "Okay, let's come on in the next day. This is the time for my shift to end, so I'm about to leave. Come in the next day."
Oh, wow.
And then we went over the next day, and because I had a retail experience, obviously from a corporate level, and my spouse was in fashion industry, so she had a lot of retail experience. So we were able to get into Dollarama directly as an assistant team leader,
Hmm.
right? And the store manager was I mean, the store manager herself was from Jamaica.
Hmm.
So again, she had, I won't say preferences, but she had a lot of hopes and a lot of good feedback for immigrants, because she had worked with a lot of immigrants, and she always knew that immigrants, they work like anything.
Yeah.
They they won't try to put you off. They would try to give the best which they can,
Hmm.
and she was really excited to hire us. But then she was really upfront with us that you both are related. I will
Hmm.
give you an initial training for about a month or month and a half, and then I'll have to separate you both. And we were like, yeah, fine. But I mean, two people from the same household should never work at the
Same
same
place, yeah.
location anyway, right? So yeah, that transition was good. However, the most painful thing was, again, us getting emails on, okay, the interview has been put on hold, and then obviously we saw the inevitable coming. After further 3 to 4 days of time, the interview have gotten cancelled. No business has any foresight into how it is going to pan
Hmm.
out, right? The stock markets were running like chicken heads. Sorry, like they had no chicken head, right? And yeah, everything was like so much chaotic. So we were like, okay, let's take a step back. Let's not panic. and let's try to control on what is under our control,
Mhm.
and let's try to focus more on them. And that is also where we tried to also get into a lot of online events,
Mhm.
because some of the businesses were able to pivot around immediately to online events and online networking space. And that's where we try to network with a lot of people, and whichever jobs were available we were still applying for them. It was just that we when we landed we had a time frame of about 3 months, that if none of us get any job in 3 months, we'll try to see if this is working out or not.
Mhm.
But then we were like, yeah, we may have to wait for like 6 to 9 months.
Mhm.
Let's give us that amount of time, let's give Canada that amount of time. And um, and yeah, that is how it panned out till 29th of March, when we started our role at Dollarama.
Mhm. That is true that it was so like unpredictable that what's going to happen in the next few months, and I think there was so much negative news also all around that the moment you open your social media, you were hearing this died, this happened, that happened, even like in your families also you end up hearing those stories, and it makes you sad, and you don't know how to process this because again nobody has been through this and don't know what's happening next. So you said it right that the best you can do in that situation is keep calm and make the best of the resources that you have in that moment, right? And Soumya, if I'm not wrong, it was up until September that you finally got your, desired job. But before that, obviously you applied to like more than 200 jobs. So walk us through a little bit to your, job search journey.
Okay, so I'll segregate it into two
Sure.
parts. One was obviously the networking portion, and networking takes a lot of
Hmm.
time, right? So, a lot of people think and imagine that networking is just sending out messages to people on LinkedIn and then
Yeah.
imagining them to be giving their reference to their recruiter, which cannot work. Because of the simple reason, like, imagine if I am a candidate and you are the recruiter, and I'm just walking up to you for the first time in my life and in your life.
Yeah.
We both don't know each other, and I'm like, can you please refer me to this job in your organization? Would you do it? Absolutely not. You don't know me,
Yeah.
you don't love me, you don't like me. I mean, you don't know anything about me. So that's why I always suggest the immigrants to keep patient with networking, and that's what I was doing too.
Hmm.
And then I had a very genuine need and want to connect with people, because if I don't connect with people, I won't be able to put my best foot forward.
Hmm.
Because first of all, you have to learn on what the Canadian way of communications are. What are the words which they don't use? What are the words which they
Yeah.
generally use? Because in our own native language, some of the things might be very accepting, and they won't be raising any eyebrows.
Yeah.
But what we do is we think in our native language, we convert it into English, and then we speak out. So that may or may not be the best way to communicate, because it is English is the first language. English or French is the first
Yeah.
language for Canadians. And there might be some words which they are not accustomed to, or they probably have less affinity to,
Yeah.
right? So I was networking a lot during those times. And that's when I stumbled across a post on LinkedIn where a person said that they have made themselves available for anyone if they can talk to us, or if we want to talk to them. And they would like to talk to us too. Turns out that this person was a co-founder of a recruitment agency also. However, when I connected with them, I never asked them for a
Hmm.
job. And there is just one thing, again, when your intent is genuine, it would automatically come out. And I haven't noticed it till date. So quite recently, this person told me that this is the exact reason why they continued to have that relationship with me,
Hmm.
an online relationship, right? Is because I asked them, how are you? How are you doing, and how are you coping up with
Hmm.
this? I know you are into a business. A lot of jobs would have just gone away. Companies don't know where they are going. So how are you coping up with it? And that person still remembers it till this date. In fact, I know now a lot of people, whenever they go to any immigrant talks, they always tell them uh, that a genuine intent to connect would always go a long way.
Mm.
Rather than just bombarding the question, can you give me a job? How do I get a job? How do I get this? How do I get that? The first step is to get assimilated into the culture of how people communicate and behave in Canada, right?
Yeah.
So that is what we were getting into more and more into. So we were listening to a lot of people, to a lot of folks. In fact, even listening to podcasts on how the small businesses will now pivot around, right?
Hmm.
And then obviously we were trying to apply for as many jobs as possible. But then this time was a little bit hard. If I say this time was easy, it was not, and it would be a lie,
Yeah.
right? Um, I was managing 15,000 employees back in my home
Hmm.
country, right? And over here, there were times at 10 o'clock when I was mopping up the floors, when I was taking SHIT from a lot of other people, right at 10 in the night. Okay, it's time to close the store. Please move out of the store. Please buy
Yeah.
and and I also want to go back home, right? So that was there. Sometimes there were times like, okay, why am I doing this thing? I was doing so very well,
Yeah.
and exactly after half an hour, it was like, Soumya, let's snap out of it. Let's take a break. This is not why we're here. So let's look at the long term goal. Um, Let us be strengthful enough to not let our short term objectives hamper our long term goals.
Exactly.
So that consistent conditioning on what is my long term goal, that was helpful. And then obviously my spouse was helpful. Sometimes she was not feeling good, sometimes I was not feeling good, so we were both there for each other. But then I at that point of time I realized that people who, especially students who would be alone during this time, they won't have anyone to talk to like this, right?
Hmm.
Obviously you can talk to your friend like every second day, third day, fourth day, but then a lot of students don't even have that many friends, especially if they would have landed like 10, 15 days before the pandemic or the lockdown started. So it was not an easy time, but we used to take time out of our busy schedules to still go out to the parks, absorb in that greenery and everything around us, and try to go out as much as possible. Although we had restricted our weekly grocery budget at around $25
Hmm.
a week, which is literally impossible right now.
Not at all. Yeah.
But at that point of time, it was. So yeah, it was a hard time, and alongside that, I was always talking to these people, networking, and I never ever asked for a job from anyone. I always talk to them about, okay, these are my skills. Please tell me know what I need to do more so that I get more acclimatized and more accustomed towards
Hmm.
how Canadian businesses behave. And the job search strategy was really simple. Um, Network with people, get to know their inputs, and just keep on applying. If there is no response on my resume for like 10 days or 15 days, I used to change my resume in some or the other way, because if I'm not getting any interview calls, then probably there is an issue. No, not probably.
Hmm.
Most probably 99% of the times there is a problem with a resume, because a resume is our advertisement,
Yeah.
a one page, two page, or three page advertisement. And if we know the advertisement is not working, then it's better to change the advertisement rather than expecting a miracle out of it. So that was again not so easy, because after every 10, 15 days you get to introspect, okay, why is it not working, or why is it working?
Yeah.
And then you need to change it again, right? And obviously it comes with all of those caveats of customizing your resume with the job description, speaking to the job qualifications,
Exactly.
and all of that stuff. So that is like, I just assume nowadays that everyone knows about it, but at that point of time, there were no WhatsApp groups, there were no such LinkedIn groups. That it seems like it's only 3 years, but I think it's been a millennia, right?
Hmm.
Because in these 3 years, there has been so much of help for immigrants. I now see WhatsApp groups, I now see LinkedIn groups, I now see Facebook groups, I now see a ton of material which now new immigrants have, which we did not have, and it was
Yeah.
just hardly 3 years ago. I just cannot believe the change that we have been living through, right? So yeah, and then eventually I got my first job. But then the journey was not at all easy.
Think we you touched upon many topics. The first thing you talked about networking was, not to ask for that job immediately when you have that coffee chat with the person. There is, this one quote, one of my guests who came like few weeks back, and she used this quote called, let's just connect with people, not just only collect. Connect your
Yeah.
connections, not just collect your connections. And I absolutely love that part. And the second thing you talked about is, the business communication lingo. That lingo to learn about, it's like you have to like Canadify your resume a little bit. You have to find that Canadian equivalent of things. Like, for example, I give this example before also, that I kept on talking to my, this hiring manager that I worked for, Adani. Everybody in India knows about Adani, right? But here nobody
Yep.
knows about Adani. There would be no follow-up questions and no responses, not at all. But then I started saying, okay, so I worked for this Indian multinational conglomerate. Oh, okay. So then
Hmm.
they started, reacting to that thing. So yes, you really have like finding the Canadian equivalent to your job and the descriptions that you have done in your country. That's like really essential. Apart from the business communication, there are other generic words which are not that common here. For example, if you go to Subway and you ask them to put capsicum on your sandwich, they'll be like, what is capsicum?
Yes.
They will look at me as if I have said something really offensive. They'll be like, what? I'm like, capsicum, that green thing. Oh, you mean green pepper?
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, fine, green pepper.
Correct.
So that happens. Even some other words like, for example, this is an Indian English word which is brinjal, like for the eggplant, right? We
Yes.
don't use eggplant in
Eggplant.
India.
Correct.
So that happens. A lot of these words that you come across, you're like, okay, I had no idea about. And another one I remember, I heard Russell Peters in his comedy special. Like in India, people always say, we shifted to a new house, but here people say we moved to a new house. And then
Moved.
he
Correct.
said,
Yeah.
considering the population of India, they can only shift; they cannot really actually move. So so they said it correctly. So yeah, a lot of these words that you come across, right?
Yes, yes, and I love that anecdote on let's not collect connections but connect with
Yeah.
connections. That's a really good one. And the brinjal and eggplant. Oh my God! I was about to when I was about to
Hmm.
go to Freshco. Sorry, when I was about to go to the Freshco's cashier
Yeah.
with the brinjal, I was like, "Can you please scan the brinjal?" And she was like, "What did he just say?
She just stared at you.
Brinjal." Yeah, she just stared at me, right?
Yeah.
Because she was a white person, and
Yeah.
then just behind her there was a person who seemed like again an Indian, and they were like, okay, they're talking about the eggplant. So they helped me out actually,
Yeah.
and that was like the first day itself when we went to Freshco. But a nice rejig of the memories. Thank you for that.
Yeah, and the other thing you talked about was, the mental health, how when you come here, everything is hunky dory, and then eventually the reality kicks in. The criteria to collect points, finding the desired job, managing your meals just takes a toll on you, right? And it's also because for the first time you're coming across all these things, finding a balance between your life, work, and money. And if even one of this is like not aligned, it really hits you. It hits you hard. So, are there any particular things, or what would you say was something that kept you motivated, or what was like the driving force for you during those hard times?
Hmm, that's a tough one. I think the driving force one was that we wanted to prove to ourselves
Mhm.
um, that we can do it, and we have to do it. So eventually, it turned out to we have to do it. I
Mhm.
don't know how it came out to be, but we did talk about okay, the struggle is there.
Mhm.
I did not know how to cook. I learned how to cook
Yeah.
over here in Canada, right? And obviously we had very less time during the whole day because we had to do our own dishes, our own laundry, our
Yeah.
own cooking, our own cleaning, our own everything by our own, right? Which were taken care of by other people
Absolutely.
while we
Yeah.
were in our home country. And then on top of it, you're living on a rent, right? Which you have to pay anyway. So I think the thing which drove us was satisfaction. Like we are investing our time right now. It's not that we are spending our time. So that mind shift change from spending to investing our time and talking about that satisfaction, like if we are able to achieve what we are here for, the satisfaction is also going to be ours. If the struggle is ours, then so is the satisfaction. So I think we chased satisfaction at that point of time, and I would say um, I'm not easily satisfied. Try to stay hungry as much as possible. But so far so good. It has been a really good journey, and I can completely attest to this saying, like, if the struggle is yours, the satisfaction is yours. Right now, I have so much of gratification, gratitude, gratitude, and that sense of satisfaction. um, like whatever I did and whatever my spouse did, we did it for ourselves and we were able to achieve it. So that kept us going.
So Soumya, so I actually went through some of your, posts on LinkedIn and actually all around the internet, and there were like some quotes, some stories, and some HR perspectives which we don't know about, some tricks, etc., which I think should be shared with the people. So after a lot of thinking, I decided to call this next segment, quote unquote, questioning the quotes.
That's an interesting one.
Okay. So the very first, let's just start from the basics. A lot of words we hear about, for example, HR, recruiter, talent acquisition, and these are not that common in India, if I'm not wrong. So educate us about all this.
Okay, let's do it in this way so that it is structured for everyone, and everyone can comprehend it in a way it is digestible. So human resources and recruitment are essentially two separate entities of the overall people and culture function. While recruiters would be considered as people who are hunters and people who are sort of the sales ambassadors for an organization, because they're out there um, to hunt for the best possible candidate at that point of time in the market for the organization.
Mm-hmm.
Human resources would be considered as a support function um, that maintains the culture in an organization, and that adds to the overall employee value proposition. Um, Whereas in South Asia, human resources, or let's just say people and culture function, essentially would be considered as one, which will have further verticals on, let's say, talent acquisition, human resources, and human resources would have training, development, um, HR operations, and everything like that. Over here, it's just straight these two things: human resources and talent
Yeah.
acquisition. If an organization is smaller, obviously you will see much more amalgamation of roles and people
Mm-hmm.
switching over from talent acquisition to human resources. But when the organization becomes bigger, talent acquisition, it's a whole beast in itself, and human resources, it's a different thing altogether. So consider them as a part of people and culture team, and then you have these two essential verticals. And in fact, the overall behavior pattern of talent acquisition folks over here is completely different from the HR folks, just because of the amount of talent that is available,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Give us like a comparison of the behavior.
Okay, so a talent acquisition professional would be out there during the bloodbath if there is no candidate available, right? They would be hunting these candidates. It's
Mm-hmm.
similar to a sales role where you're trying to hunt a client,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it's just that you're trying to hunt a skill, and you're trying to hunt for a personality
Mm-hmm.
whose wavelength matches with the organizational culture,
Okay.
and their skills would be able to add to the organizational value, or how would they be able to propel the organization forward. So
Okay.
a talent acquisition professional in Canada would consider themselves an equivalent to being a, a
Okay.
salesperson. If you're good at sales, you can be really good at talent acquisition over here in Canada. Um, as for the human resources thing, if you're really good at managing people and if you have a very high EQ,
Okay.
you will be able to make it up in the human resources field over here. But again, um, if we talk about compensation, um, there are like differences on how these two professional fields are paid. Um, so the human resources, again, the hierarchy in human resources would be an HR assistant, then an HR coordinator, then a generalist. Then the generalists either move to an HR manager role or an HR business partner role. And HR business partner role essentially also moves in and amalgamates with the HR manager role, then to a director, AVP, VP, and chief people officer. With recruitment, again, there are two facets to it. One is the agency-based recruitment. So, agency-based recruitment, there would be only talent sourcers, where the compensation would be a really low, not a low base, but an acceptable base to a certain degree, but very high commissions.
Mhm.
Whereas for similar roles in HR, you will have very high base with sort of a bonus with zero commissions, because these roles do not exist in the agency format. And these talent acquisition professionals in big organizations also, when some or the other way have some part of their compensation connected with the number of people that they hire
Mm.
eventually, right? So a lot of organizations are coming up with such compensation plans too, but some, again, in very large organizations, it's comparatively hard to make a
Mhm.
change. So they are still on that base plus bonus sort of a compensation model, which I think eventually is going to change, because the talent acquisition professionals over here, they are really good. They're
Mm.
really good. They might not be able to come back to
Yeah.
you. I see a lot of posts that the recruiters do not come back to me and they're ghosting me, and
Yeah.
so it's just that this sort of things happens everywhere. And just see from a recruiter's perspective, their life is hard. They are going through hundreds or two hundreds of applications on every single job.
Mhm.
And even if they respond back to you saying, okay, we are not selecting you, the natural tendency would be, okay, tell me why.
Yeah.
And that itself can blow out into a lot of other conversations, right? And just because there is also a law on discrimination, and essentially while you are getting recruited,
Mm.
it's it's a preference based on the perception on the answers which you gave
Yeah.
on the questions which are asked from you, that decide whether your candidacy is going ahead or not.
Mhm.
So there is that discrimination piece also that the recruiters have to be aware about, else they get sued. So please do not feel sad that the recruiter didn't get back to you. If the recruiter didn't get back to you, just try to connect with them offline on LinkedIn and just try to them to ask, okay, what can I do better?
Mm.
They can certainly tell you that, right? Whereas in human resources professional fields, obviously you won't be able to get in touch with them so very frequently, because you will be getting in touch with them only when a situation or a problem arises, and then they will be helping you out. The compensation piece generally for the human resource professionals is a base and then a bonus, and that remains the same throughout. And this generally does not match with the talent acquisition professionals.
Mhm.
So this is how both the verticals are segregated in terms of any people and culture team um, in Canada. Obviously, the dynamics of small, medium, and large scale organizations do come in, and I could go on and on and on about this. But then, if you are a listener and you want to deep dive more into it, feel free to send me a message on LinkedIn, and we'll chat through.
No, I think this was like a full-fledged 7-minute masterclass, and I'm sure there is there is more to it. And yeah, I encourage every all our listeners to reach out to Soumya for sure. And Soumya, this does reminds me of two other quotes, which I saw. The first was, headhunting is like proposing a girl, where you wish to God the opposite party says a yes. But isn't it the opposite, that job hunters really pray that you guys say a yes?
Okay, so there are two things. Headhunting is when I am going out there
Yeah.
and trying to hunt a passive candidate.
Mhm.
Okay,
Okay.
there are a lot of active candidates in the market who are applying to your jobs and everything like that. And headhunting is something that I excel in, and I just love it to the core, right? And I love it to the extent that I was sending messages to candidates at 12 in the night,
Wow.
and my spouse was like, "Why are you doing that? I mean, what impression would the candidate have about the company?" And I was like, it does not matter. For me, what matters is, as soon as I see a candidate who can be a really good wavelength match with us and I can compete with them, I can provide them with a really good compensation, let's go for it. Right? Why should I wait for it? And then if and the candidate can ask this question during our one-on-one process, right? Because that is an interaction, and that's why I never call it as an interview. I always used to call it as a discussion. Like it's a discussion
Mm-hmm.
essentially. So and let's throw out all the cards in front of everyone, and everyone thinks the best for themselves, and we'll go on from there.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember about that quote because I was hiring for about 11 roles at the same point of time. I had about 15 headhunted
Mm-hmm.
candidates, and about 5 or 7 candidates who applied through job portals. Um, and I had to close a lot of them because suddenly the organization was expanding, and they were like, "Okay, we got to expand somewhere. Let's hire. Let's go." And there were 3 candidates whom I was very excited about, and obviously I knew at that point of time they had alternate packages. So that's why I say headhunting is like proposing a girl. Like, I have put in my best foot
Yeah.
forward. This is my offer letter, this is my ring. Right? This is our ring of engagement, so it's up to you to say a yes or no. Right? Because when it's a no, it's really hard to process sometimes, because there is so much of time that goes into headhunting
Mm-hmm.
and finding that passive candidate which actually has the same wavelength as the organization, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it is, and really good research that you have done for sure.
Okay, so the next one was, don't be afraid of ATS because and the
Yep.
applicant tracking system. Tell us about that as well.
Okay, so the ATS, or the applicant tracking system, a lot of people come over here, and I don't know why do they demonize the ATSs that much.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have heard stories from immigrants saying ATS automatically um, expunges their candidature because of their name, but because of their country or because of certain organizations. Trust me, nothing like that ever happens. Till date, there has been no AI software which, no AI based ATS software which has 100% capability and um, trust uh, to expunge or eliminate candidates to that high degree. All an AI based ATS would tell a recruiter is how much relevant that resume is to the job requirements.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the times, the recruiters are seeing the resumes on the other side of the table.
Okay.
And I can say this, some of my friends work in very big organizations in Canada, one of the largest organizations in Canada. I obviously cannot take their names.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but they have also assured me that an ATS is just 2 things. First, it maintains your resume in the
Mm-hmm.
database, so that if there is headhunting need which needs to be done, or let's just say if there is an urgent requirement, okay, I need a person to be hired in 5 days, so the recruiter would directly go to the ATS, would scan through the resumes, through some of the keywords, and then they will try to see their resumes and try to connect with the candidates. Or an ATS would just be used to manage the candidates throughout the process. If I'm getting 200 applications, how am I managing those 200 applications? Obviously, I'm not maintaining an Excel file for each and every role that I hire for. So what am I going to do? I take help from the software. Okay, this candidate shortlisted, they move to the next stage. Shortlisted, okay, first interview, next stage. So we can very easily see how a candidate flow is getting maintained throughout that whole process, right? If this person is in second interview, okay, what are the comments of the interviewer? What did the recruiter say? What did the candidate say? What is overall rating? How are we going to move ahead? So the ATS manages the candidates and makes the life of a recruiter
Easier.
easy by giving them that sales fun or that funnel, that recruitment funnel. Like, this is how it is working. I don't know, unfortunately, why so many people are afraid of the ATSs. But yes, there are some basic features of ATSs that the recruiters use. If let's just say there is a questionnaire on, do you have work authorization to work in the country which you're applying for? If you answer it as no, obviously the ATS is going to eliminate your candidature, because there is no sense in the recruiter or even anyone in investing that time in you, because you don't have the work authorization, right? So for those basic questions, yes, that ATS can still be used, but ATS getting used to eliminate the candidature based on name, country, their sexual orientation, or anything like that. Nothing like that ever happens on other side of the table. It just makes the candidate flow and the recruitment funnel in a very visible manner to all the stakeholders involved in that hiring process. So don't be afraid of the ATS. And this is also one of the things that I say to everyone. If you have a sort of a resume that is really high on numbers and it also shows your high EQ skills, you will be getting shortlisted by recruiters or organizations which have a similar wavelength. If you get rejected, trust me, it's one of the best things that ever happened to you.
Love that. Yeah, and just to add to that, I think that's why it's always said to cater your resume as per the job description.
Yeah, I mean, generally ATSs don't do that scanning. It's always the recruiters.
Okay.
Recruiters, in about 10 seconds, they are able to see if your resume really speaks to the job description or not,
Hmm.
because they're doing this day in and day
Yeah.
out. Obviously it breaks the hearts of the candidates. How can you decide in 10 seconds if my resume is good enough or not? And that is the challenge. That is the exact challenge that candidates have to see. Your advertisement is given 10 seconds of one-on-one time to the recruiter. How do you compel that recruiter to flip your resume to the second page,
Hmm.
to the third
Yeah.
page? Because if they have completed their full journey through your resume, you will most likely be getting shortlisted. And that is a challenge for the candidates.
Yeah. I think the next one is very similar to this one. It kind of adds to that, which is adopting a Canadian sounding name is not the solution.
Well, first of all, it's a very unfortunate thing if people think about
Yeah.
that. And my simple thing is that if an organization's perception in the market is that you may have to change your name to get shortlisted, then I won't even
Hmm.
apply to that
Yeah,
organization.
exactly.
Talk about diversity, right? So that organization does not deserve your candidature. But still, if that person or if that candidate is desperate enough, I still do not advise to do that, because you won't change your identity. How, I mean, what all you would you change? What's the next thing that you would change in yourself, right? So just be yourself, um, and try to find an organization that matches your wavelength. That I always say that if you try to be in an organization which does not match your wavelength, then you have faked it till you make
Hmm.
it, till you have made it. You won't be happy.
Not
Your
at
mental
all.
health
Yeah.
will suffer, and you would probably end up leaving that job in like 1 to 2 years of time frame. And 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 I've not even considered the amount of stress it adds to you, because you faked it till you made it.
Yeah.
And now you have to maintain that artificial personality of yours for the next 1 to 2 years of your life, which are never going to come back. So it's one thing to be desperate, but it's another thing to be finding what speaks to you,
Hmm.
what is a calling. Do that. It is easier said than done. I know about that because I have walked through it. I've gone through that. And I had a very honest chat with my CEO. I mean, while I was giving the
Hmm.
interview, like, this is who I am, and what is the kind of a person, or what is the kind of the personality that they're looking to hire for. And they were very upfront with it too. And we found an 80 to 85% match. And I was like, yeah, 10 to 15% differences would always be there, and we
Yeah.
will try to work it out. We will work it out. That's our job, right, at the end of the day. But then if there is an 80% match, go for it.
Hmm.
But then I have seen immigrants getting into some job and then repenting it, and then eventually leaving that after 1 year, and
Hmm.
then they get even more frustrated. And that attachment with Canada, and
Yeah.
that illusion just starts to creep in, and it is not very healthy for sure.
Okay, so now let's just pivot towards immigrant networks. You are an ambassador for
Hmm.
immigrant networks. And like I said, initially, they cater to the biggest pain points of newcomers, from networking to finding a job and obviously getting on the path to succeed. So tell us all about that and also about the Wednesday calls that are organized.
Yes, so Immigrant Networks is the brainchild of Nick Norani, and it's all pro bono. We give all of our time, all the ambassadors, we give a pro bono time to immigrants to connect with us. And our motive is please do not commit the mistakes that we did. Second, learn from us. Third, put your best foot
Mhm.
forward. um, Everything that we do does not always have to do with job hunting, because we also advise people on how to manage your finances,
Mhm.
how to complete their financial journey over here, how the different sectors look like, how does marketing look like over here, what are the expectations of marketing professionals. We even have people who are working with big banks, who are our ambassadors, then people in finance. Um, so every Wednesday we hold these calls from 5 to 6:30 Pacific Standard Time, wherein we choose a topic of the day. The topic of that Wednesday is revealed in the LinkedIn page of Immigrant Networks. So please, first of all the listeners, please follow that, and please try to attend as many sessions as possible, wherein we ambassadors, which are like now I think more than 15 in number.
17, last I checked.
Thank you. Thank you for the fact
Yeah.
check. So yes, so more than 15 for sure, and they would ever be increasing, because
Mhm.
we all are the people who actually have gone through this process, and we trust this process. We know how the communication goes. Like we hold calls on, okay, what are some communication tips for you? Like Nick Rani introduced this thing called as broccoli challenge. So
Hmm,
the challenge goes
interesting.
on like, okay, if you're a new immigrant,
Mhm.
if you're a newcomer, a new immigrant, and you are in any grocery store, so hold up a broccoli in your hand, walk up to a person who does not look like you,
Okay.
and talk about broccoli with them for 5 minutes. Right? Try to strike those
Hmm.
conversations. The motive is to try to strike those conversations, and that's a really good thing that Nick came up with. I think it has picked up some steam now. So a lot of people do keep on posting about broccoli
Oh, wow.
challenge. But then we all, I mean, we are a good mix of ambassadors who have HR experience, who have
Hmm.
marketing experience, I mean, accounting. You say it, we have those professionals in IT, in a lot of other roles. So every Wednesday we have these calls. First of all, second, we reveal the topic about 3 to 4 days earlier on our LinkedIn page of Immigrant Networks. Um, and then we also hold one-on-one calls with people who want to chat up with us on a one-on-one basis. Obviously, everything is pro bono, um, and that's how we try to help. And if we can refer someone to some good person which can be of better help to them, we do that too. So it's like a channel which enables immigrants helping immigrants. And this
Hmm.
was started with the single intent that even if you are on LinkedIn, you would still have to send a message,
Yeah.
right? You will still have to send a request and wait for that request to get
Yeah.
accepted, which happens 1 in 20, 1 in 20 instances, right? And then you have to wait for that person to respond back. Over here, once you register on immigrantnetworks.com, which is free, you set up your preferences. Let's say if I go and I mention that, okay, I'm an HR business partner, I'm in human resources, I have these many years of experience. So what the AI software in the backend would do is they would try to match these professionals or these people with international experience with people who are already in Canada in that same profession. So let's just say if Gurashish is a human resource professional working in India,
Mhm.
and I'm here in Canada, and you register on immigrantnetworks.com. So the AI software will match you and me up, and it will send an email to us both. Like, you two are both
Okay.
matched. Please pick a timing of your choosing, and then connect on a one-on-one. After the one-on-one is connected, it even gives us the feedback loop, like give the feedback to the other person on how they were or what they can do,
Hmm.
right? So it's an immediate connect for any person having international experience to connect with a person in Canada who has that exact same experience in that field, in and is working in the same professional capacity in Canada. So we bypass everything from accepting or sending messages and waiting for Zoom calls and then yada yada yada. Everything is taken care of by that AI software automatically. So yeah, so now we are introducing a lot of other cool stuff. So good things to follow from here. My suggestion to everyone would be go to immigrantnetworks.com. It's free of cost to register. Just register yourself, fill in your preferences, and you will be matched with your with a person of your own profession who's working in Canada, and then you can take tips from them. You can develop your network in a much easier way. Obviously, most of the networking will happen on
Yeah.
LinkedIn, but you will get access to these professionals through this portal. So make use of it.
Wow, it sounds absolutely incredible, Soumya. Thank you for sharing this. And to all my listeners, I would encourage you to reach out to Soumya and also to join Immigrant Networks. All the links can be found in the show notes. So since you do talk to a lot of students on Wednesdays, and you do come across a lot of people who reach out to you as well, and another quote that I saw, another post basically that I saw on your feed was the biggest factor stopping job hunters, especially immigrants, from securing a job in Canada is the communication. Where you mentioned that candidates end up saying 500 words for a short answer, maybe which can be effectively answered in 100 words, and it can be even more impactful than those 500 words. Tell us about that.
So it's one among these cultural changes, or the variance in culture, as I call it. So over in South Asia, we have a tendency to explain the topic to everyone,
Yeah.
right? But over here in North America, it's not the same. If you can make it clear, crisp, and concise in about 100 words or in 2 minutes, that's enough for them.
Yeah.
They will automatically assume that you know it. They would trust you during an interview, right? Which does not happen that frequently in South Asia, because
Yeah.
in South Asia the priority is to weed out the candidates who are trying to fake it. But over here it's more of a trusting culture. So I always advise people to write down their answers, remove as many lines or as many unnecessary statements that they can, structure their answer in, obviously, this is the situation, this is the action, and this is the result. And then try to practice it. Stand in the front of mirror and then speak it out loud, um, and then practice it. If you think that the answer is going too long, like 5 6 minutes, people here in North America will think that you're full of shit,
Yeah.
um, which does not happen in South Asia, or mostly in or even in African nations, right?
Mhm.
Generally speaking. But over here, if you're clear, crisp, and precise, they will certainly believe you. And they have a much more grueling process of getting information from you. And if it mismatches, they will know about it. So there is there is less sense in speaking for 5 minutes
Yeah.
straight than for speaking like 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, and be done with it.
Hmm. And to add to that, you also, I remember, said in our earlier conversation that wear your accent as a badge. And I absolutely love
Yeah,
that. And this reminds me of another quote that you shared, which was if someone is speaking to you in a foreign accent, they are smart enough to know two languages and were brave enough to do their job in the second.
exactly, exactly. So yeah, that is something that a lot of people do ask me, okay, how I develop that accent, and I'm like,
You don't have to. Come on. Be your authentic
yes,
self. Yeah.
exactly. All you need is to find a way to communicate with the other person. If the other person is able to understand what you're trying to say, that is it. That is it. That is all you require.
100%.
And yeah, wear it as a badge of honor, because it shows that despite you being different, you left your whole country, you left your comfort zone. You are in this zone where you don't know many people,
Yeah.
or as many people as other people might know, right? And you are putting yourself out there. You are already brave enough. It's just a matter of uh, patience, perseverance, and do not let yourself down because you have an accent.
Hmm.
uh, just take care of your communication. Take on the broccoli challenge. Right?
Yeah.
Speak to other people. Talk about communication. Dollarama helped me in a lot of ways, that I was able to gauge what to say, what not
I
to say, what
bet.
what are those words which I have to avoid. So I do candidly advise people, like, even if you can do a job at or Walmarts or Freshcos or Dollaramas for about 2 3 months, that will be a huge confidence booster for you.
Yeah.
and you will get into that habit of thinking in the second language. If not thinking in the second language, then at least you will get into a hang of not stammering a lot, not using filling words or filler words a lot, and then speaking at a very comfortable pace.
Yeah.
And then if you want to speak fast, you can speak fast. If you want to speak slow, you can speak slow. But eventually, all that matters is if you're able to communicate. If you're able to do that,
Yeah.
there is nothing else needs to be achieved or proven.
Yeah. 100%. It's not exactly how you are saying it, it's about what you are saying exactly. And also, I've said it so many times on the podcast, it takes a little bit of time to get accustomed to each other's accents. Give each other a
Hmm.
little bit time, and you'll be absolutely okay. Soumya, so let's just get into the final segment of the podcast. I call it Beneath the Accent. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. You can answer them in one word or a sentence or however you feel like. The idea is just to know more about Soumya. So ready?
Yep, let's go ahead.
So very classic question. What advice would you give to Soumya who is in the initial months of landing in Canada?
Connect, connect on LinkedIn with a lot of people.
Okay. Next is, what's this one habit that you adopted that has changed your life?
Gratification, saying thank you to a lot of folks in my life every single day.
100%. Can't agree more. And what's something you have learned recently that you wish you knew earlier?
I think I would say if I was more um, comical, or let's just say if I could have used a lot more jokes when I was conversing with people. Generally, I come across as a very serious person,
Okay.
but now I try to instill jokes here and there. But that is one quality which I would like to make myself aware of, and then also imbibe in myself.
Okay. Interesting. So, what did you recently buy that you now regret?
My car.
You regret buying your car?
Yeah, I now regret not buying an electric one.
Oh, okay. So, what's the most expensive thing you own?
Hmm. My relationship with my daughter.
Oh, I can't beat. Nobody can beat that. But okay, now tell me the materialistic thing. What's the most expensive thing you own?
That's a tough one. That's a real tough one. I think my relationship with one special person who introduced me to my first job.
Okay. Okay. So, what's the most expensive thing you would like to own?
Hmm. Some sort of a land plot in Jamaica.
Okay. Any specific reason why Jamaica?
Well, my environment is under my control, so why not live the island life?
Okay. So, what's next on your bucket list then?
A trip to Hawaii or Jamaica.
Okay. So, who's your go to person?
I would say it's not a person,
Mm-hmm.
um, but it's actually the book, which is Bhagavad Gita. So
Okay.
that is my go-to. I can say person because it was recited by a person,
Mm-hmm.
but that is my go-to resource for anything.
This also reminds me of another quote that you posted from Bhagavad Gita, which was pursue what you do selflessly, do not desire for the fruit. I
Yep.
remember that.
So first deserve and then desire. That's my motto. Also, I always go with that.
So, if you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Turn back time and get into an HR and IT kind of a role, which amalgamates both of them.
Okay. So, if you would have to create one law that everybody has to follow, what would it be?
Be truthful.
Now, describe Canada in one word or a sentence.
Wow. Respectful.
So, lastly, if you could leave me with one piece of advice, what would it be?
Keep smiling. Always.
Okay.
Keep on that smiling. Never let that go.
So, Soumya, I would like to end with an excerpt from a note that you wrote to Soumya of the Year 2024, that you wrote in December
Hmm.
2020. And just an excerpt from it, which goes, ending the year with some great people by your side, which you did not know even existed when 2020 started. The struggle has been yours, the failures have been yours, and so has been the success. If you are feeling down, lost, or indecisive, just remember this time. Take the bold step. Never stop throwing yourself out of your comfort zone. Failures will come. Learn and move on. So, on that note, Soumya, thank you so much for being on the podcast and adding value to my listeners. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Gurashish. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Hey listener, thank you for making it to the end. I highly appreciate you listening the podcast. Subscribe to the podcast if you haven't as yet, and please share with your friends or anybody you think would like it. And like I always say, we encourage you to follow your heart, but also us on Instagram. The handle is mythicaccent. You can also leave us a review or write to us at hello@mythicaccent.com. So stay tuned and let's continue knowing each other beneath the accent.